Hi, this is Monica Mitchum, your Advanced Certified QuickBooks Pro Advisor and Intuit Premier Reseller. Today's video is going to take a look at what Enterprise has to offer that you would not find in QuickBooks Premier. For starters, what I want you to see, I've got this QuickBooks Desktop Premier. This does show the industry editions, and Enterprise actually does come with all these different industry editions. You get to pick the one when you're going through the installation. But Enterprise also comes in 3 different levels: silver, gold, and platinum. So as I move through the video today, I'll highlight, what gold has that silver doesn't, what platinum has that you don't get in gold. And I do have a comparison chart that I'm actually working from. If you found this video on my webpage, then chances are you saw the feature comparison chart that you could take a look at. And if not, and you'd like to get one, you can certainly reach out to me. Just come to my website and you can send an email from there, and I'll be happy to point you in the direction so you can download the feature comparison chart. Makes it kind of easy sometimes, but for me, it just makes sure that I follow all my bullet points that I'd like to cover. So in addition to Enterprise being able to having different levels, when you move into Enterprise, you can actually go up to 30 users. Premier can go up to 5. So obviously 30 users suggests that this is a software that wants to grow with a business. It also says that if you have, 10, 30 users in your books, then maybe one of the things you want to do is take a look at how people can access what they can or cannot access. So let me bring into here, I want to take a look at the permissions. So when we are in, this is the same as with QuickBooks Pro, but when you go to set up a user, so I'm just going to put in, and I'm not going to put in a password, which I would recommend that you actually do. But now I can do selected, you can do all areas or selected areas. I'll do selected so you get to see the different screen prompts. So it has sales and accounts receivable that you can control, transactions, whether or not they can create, print, what they can do with reporting. And if you look at then, so we talked about sales, now we look at the purchase side, what can they do in terms of, can they create transactions, can they print, can they do reporting, and whether or not they have access to your checking and credit card accounts. And even if you do selective, then it just says that they can create them. It doesn't give them the option here to delete, thankfully, but you create or print. And then inventory, then again, it's pretty much the same: create and print, or create transactions and reports. Time tracking, again, you can take a look. Pretty much the same types of parameters. Payroll, again, selective is a little bit different. The create, print, e-pay, e-file, and then the transactions and reports. And then sensitive accounting activities would be online banking, journal entries. What do you want them to be able to do? And then the financial reporting. So that'd be things like your balance sheet and your profit and loss statement. Whether or not they can change or delete transactions. You might want them to be able to change, but maybe you don't want them to delete. Or maybe, and whether or not they can have the ability to change or delete transactions that were recorded before a closing date. So closing date says that, no one can make a change to these transactions unless they have the password. So anyhow, and then this just lets you see the summary. So you can kind of see, it's nice that you can certainly restrict people, but as I'm going to show you next, when you take a look at QuickBooks Premier, there's just no comparison. I mean, there's just none. So when I go into company and users, now there's actually roles. So you assign a role. You might have 2 or 3 or 4 people who have the same role in the business. Maybe you have sales reps. Maybe you have some field foreman that you want to be able to do something. Maybe there's 2 or 3 folks who are in the office that are doing some of the bookkeeping, and you want to have, and they do the same thing. But you can go in to set up roles, users, and roles. Oh, excuse me, sorry about that. So if I go into, what I want you to see first off is that there are actually a whole slew of roles, okay? And I'm not going to go set a new role up, but what I will do is I will go in and let you see just to edit, because not only do we have a lot of different types of roles, view only, time tracking only, sales, what can they do? But we can go into like the accounts receivable. What I want you to see is here's the areas and activities. And if the circle is blank, it means they have no access. If it's partially filled, then it says they have some. So if I click on the plus sign here, then you'll see that they have full access maybe to making deposits, but they don't have access to anything else under banking. But what I also want you to see, before we kind of gave them access to the bank accounts and credit card accounts or not, here you can actually be very specific. You have access to this bank account, but you don't have access to another one. So you can kind of see how you can work with that. And then over here on the right, again, when it's partial, then you'll see that there are some different options there. A couple other things, let me go into the centers, that when they do the customer center, can they view the balance of the customer? Now, we're on accounts receivable, so you probably want them to, but there would be other people who might be in your books. Maybe you don't want them to know what the balance is for a customer or a vendor. So there's just a wide variety of different access. So as much as possible, I suggest that people work with the roles, and then that way if someone leaves and another person comes in to take their place, you just give them that role. I've seen some of companies where the name of the permissions are just the name of the person's name. Of course, if they ever leave, then you just kind of make those I guess null and void, right? And this always lets you take a look at the permissions that a given person could do. So you can kind of see it in chart form. That's maybe a little bit easier sometimes than scrolling through the chart there. So like I say, there's just really no comparison between the two. So that's a big one when you're looking at whether you go in QuickBooks Premier or QuickBooks Enterprise. So, with 5 users, maybe not, but you start getting, you want 8 users or more, then you would have to be an enterprise anyhow. But again, the more people you have in your books, then the more restrictions you probably want to have in place. Another area where QuickBooks, where the two will differ, is how big your list can be. And a list would be like your customers, your list of customers in here, and your customers and your vendors and your employees and those other names are actually all in one big table. So that's why you can't have a customer vendor with the exact same name in QuickBooks. And when you have a customer like we have one here, and then these stores or jobs that you might have in your file, they all count. So this would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 names. And whether or not they are active or inactive, they count. Obviously active would, but the inactive ones count too. But when we put the customers, the vendors, the employees, the other names, and depending on the size of your company, you get turnover in employees, that list can grow as well. So there is a limit to how many names you can have in your QuickBooks data file. And a couple times I've had people call in a panic, like, oh my gosh, what do I do? I can't have another customer, I need to invoice them. That'd be pretty upsetting. So the fix was to move them into enterprise. So on the chart, I have the numbers, but the maximum size of both your names list and actually your items list would be 14,500. So the names list usually hasn't been a problem for, I'd say, most of my clients. It's like the car repair places where it's always different people, or retail environments. Those are kind of areas I see that a lot. And then in terms of the items list, those who deal with a lot of inventory or materials, and that's where I see the differences, and those might have a need for a larger list. And with enterprise, then you can have, they'll say it's unlimited. I would put that in quotes. I would say it depends on, and I would say there's other factors that it depends on. Another area where there are differences would be the number of custom fields you can have for the names. So I can come into here, and a custom field, I love them. I use them a lot in my own company files. But you can define the fields, and if I'm in Premier, then I can go up to where the label customer, vendor, and employee. That's all you would see. And then you can add whatever things you want to track about your customer or your vendor or your employee. And so with Premier, you can have a total of 7. And when you get into Enterprise, though, now in here, we can actually start to come up with the type of data that's going to be in that field. You can even do a drop-down list. You can have it one that they can edit, or you can have, one that you create yourself. But if we were to do, say, a multi-user list, then you put in what are the choices that they can choose from, and then click on OK. The advantage to that is if you've ever tried running reports or trying to filter, and people are writing dates or other information in different ways. I mean, I've seen company names abbreviated in a variety of ways, whether it's capitalized or lowercase, all makes a difference. So this makes it a lot easier. I love the drop-down boxes in Enterprise. That's what I have a lot of in my own file. And then for me, because I'm a keystroke person, it just makes it easier for data entry. But anyhow, so you're going to find that with Enterprise, you can control the type of data in there, but you can also have more custom fields. So you can have up to 12 if all you did was for a customer. If you're going to do customer, vendor, and employee, then you're going to tap out at 30. So 10 apiece, you get to decide how you do it. It might be most of them are for customers. When you get into the items, then Premier can do, let me go into the items list so you can take a look there. And go into here and take a look. So if I look at custom fields here, then I can define fields again. And with Premier, you can have up to 5 custom fields. And again, you just get as far as, the label and whether or not you're going to use it. But when you're in QuickBooks Enterprise, and you can, again, control the type of data. You can also say that they're required for a transaction or on a list. And when that first came out, I thought it was a great idea, but then there were a couple of times I didn't have the answer, and I thought, well, I don't know, so I had to cancel the entire thing that I was working on. I thought, well, that's not very good. So maybe it's not as much of an issue for some of you folks. And I don't even remember what I was trying to do. So, but you can have up to 15 for your items in Enterprise. You can also, and when you do memorize transactions, again, if you're looking at QuickBooks Enterprise being able to have more users, then I would expect that they would have maybe a larger customer base and more types of transactions that might want to be memorized. So in memorized transactions with QuickBooks Pro and Premier, it's 14,500. With Enterprise, it's 50,000, where it kind of taps out. Getting back to the custom fields, you can use them in when you're entering like a check or a bill. You can customize the tab down below. You can customize the columns, and you can actually add your the sales rep, but you can also add your custom fields. So maybe if you've got sales reps and they get commission, do they get commission on the total sales, or are they getting commission on the net? Or maybe you just want to track and see, what were your expenses along with the job or the sale that the sales rep had. And I can click on OK, and now my sales rep field would show in here. So that is a nice feature. With my contractors, again, if they're looking at reps and maybe they wanted to do commission on the bottom line, the profitability of the job versus the total sale of the job, then this lets them be able to pull that in. See, I'm going down to my chart a little bit slowly, I know. So just I mentioned in one video when I was talking about Premier, the Accountants Edition can work in more than one company file at a time. You can do the same thing with Enterprise. With Enterprise, you have in the silver and gold, and actually within the 3 levels, you have most of the accountant features. So the ability to work in the 2 companies is certainly one of them. And let's see, another feature in Enterprise is you can actually have a default class. So in Premier, you can say that you want to be prompted to assign classes, but in Enterprise, you can actually pick to assign classes. So you could do accounts, items, or names. So I use names in my own company file that might work for a lot of my clients, or perhaps for contractors, maybe it's the types of services, your items that might work better. Some people like to use accounts. You don't have to use it, but if I do names, just so you can see, if I go into a customer record and go into here, there will be a place where I can actually assign the class. Probably doesn't make sense for this particular sample file, but it does let you see that you can assign one there. You don't have to assign them, and maybe it's just for some. And when you're running the actual transaction, you can always change the class. I guess what I have found is it will pull from the record first, and then if you want something different, then you would have to you'd have to change it in there, but you certainly can. The enterprise is also supported in what they call a remote desktop environment. So I know I've got several clients in enterprise, and they, lots of folks nowadays want mobile. So the remote desktop says that both the software and your data file are on the same server, which is different than a traditional network installation where your data is on the server, but your software is on your workstations. So, and in doing that, when everything is on the same server, everyone needs their own Windows license, everyone needs their own Microsoft Office license, that kind of thing. But it also says that then there's different licensing. You're going to have everyone working on the same location kind of at one time. So you need a much stronger type of server. So I'm not your IT person, but the type of server that you would get for a remote desktop would be different. There are also, if you don't want to get your own remote desktop, sometimes your local IT companies might do that. I know I've got a couple IT companies here that will that provide that service. And then there are also hosting companies who have gone through the hoops to get their to be approved by Intuit. So, and then you're with the hosting companies, you're going to pay per month per user. It's not concurrent users; it really is per user that wants to get in there, and then on top of whatever you'd be paying with the software. So, but anyhow, it is something that's supported in that environment. Along with enterprise, you also get unlimited US-based tech support. Most of my clients that have had interacted with the enterprise tech support have been very happy. There's also 12 hours worth of training that comes with that. There's a couple different ways, but the training that comes with enterprise is done by the Real World Training Company. When you've got maybe changes in people, or if you're new to the software, or you picked up a new type of service in your business, that sometimes being able to do something online to be able to get training becomes very handy, very nice to do. Let me go through my checklist here. And another area I mentioned in Premier where you could do price levels, and there with the price levels, then you could do with Premier, you could do like the fixed percent, or you could do per item. But the number of price levels that you can have is what is different. So in Premier, you can have up to 100, and in Enterprise, you can go up to about 750. Kind of along that same vein, then the other thing that you can do, and it's a feature that you can turn on when you're in Enterprise. If I go into the preferences and sales and customers, there is what they call advanced pricing. Advanced pricing actually comes with the platinum level, the high end of enterprise. But with here, then you do have more power. And one of the things that it enables you to do, let me show you, is now if I go to do it, it turns all your price levels into price rules. So now what I'm able to do, if I set up a new price level, very different than what I had before. So what you're able to do, let me see if I can, there we go. So what I'm able to do is you can choose whether it's an item, customer, class, or sales rep. And then you can choose based on your first choice, well, if it's a certain customer type, and then what's the type that I wanted to do. These aren't good types in here, my 2 cents. So, but then I can add another level, and they get certain items. Maybe it's from or from a certain vendor that they would get. I'll do maybe a non-inventory part. I can put a date range. I can say the price is percent above, below. I can do price overrides, and just very, very powerful. I like to think of it in terms of you like to do wheeling and dealing. So it generally is, although you might do some as a contractor, I find it is probably more useful for my clients that do sales, as in like, you know, product sales, my landscape nurseries, or, you know, those who buy and sell products or maybe manufacture products. Those types of businesses are the ones that I see might find more of a need or like to use the advanced pricing. Let me see as I go through my list. So a couple of things I mentioned in the Premier when I was looking at features you could get in the Accountant's Edition of Premier. I could say most of those features also are available in the Enterprise. So I actually have, unfortunately, Accounts Edition of Enterprise, but it'd be like the batch enter transactions. So again, what's nice is you can do the different types of transactions. You've got them in an Excel spreadsheet. You can copy and paste. What I like here, as I mentioned in the other video, was the ability to be able to use items. So for those who do job costing, which is a lot of my clients, then that became a very useful feature to be able to do the batch enter. Let's see, as I'm looking through my list here, anything else? The sales order fulfillment. So let me go back and let me see into here. So this is my, this is the Premier that I'm in here. And one of the things that you're able to do is the sales order worksheet, sales order fulfillment worksheet. So I want you to see what it looks like. So it's, what's nice, it does have the, you can say whether things are you can fill or not fill, and when it came out, it was really nice to work with. It gave you, if you wanted to see what orders you could fill based on criteria that you put in, very, very nice. Starting with 2018, then Intuit beefed up the this portion of QuickBooks Enterprise, available in the Platinum level. So again, the high end. So I think that the Platinum, if you are a heavy inventory user, then the Platinum might be a good fit. Most of my contractors are fine with like the Silver or the Gold level of Enterprise, but depending on your inventory use needs, then you might find that the Platinum is where you want to be. So if I'm in here, I go back into the preferences, and it would be under inventory. It would be under the advanced inventory. And so I can go under the advanced inventory settings. I forgot to turn my multi-monitor feature on here. So in here, then with Enterprise, you can actually have, sites, and you can track your inventory by location. That's what this multiple inventory location is. You can track serial and lot numbers. It's either or, it's not both. Unfortunately, don't ask me why and how to handle those. You can do first in, first out. You can use barcodes in here. And there's more now that they've added with the 2018. But there is a new sales order fulfillment worksheet in here. And you can add devices. So you can work off of an Android cell phone. There's an app that you can get to work with this, or you can get a special barcode scanner that can work with this. But I'm going to click on OK, and then we're going to go into the sales order fulfillment worksheet. And what I want you to notice is it does look different, right? So now I don't have the lower section to see, but I can see what's going on. What tells me, instead of having icons, it says yes or no on there. I can look at, I can put in some criteria in here, and then over here is where you can actually create your pick list. So if I wanted to do, say this one, it's got a few items, and then if I click on next, then you can click the items and you can start to look at filling the doing the pick list that you've got. And I can click on next, and I'm not going to be able to do it in the sample file, but you would have a picker's name. They can put their comments, and then they can actually create and send this electronically, or they can create and print. So I'm just going to go back to orders because you can't do that in the sample file. So that is a part of the advanced inventory. So the enhanced sales order is part of it. A couple other features that you can do is going back into the preferences. These are all inventory preferences. Is you can not allow negative quantities. That probably is a really good idea. I know that Intuit, or excuse me, QuickBooks will give you a warning, but I've said, I know a lot of people just ignore the warning, go and click on OK, and I can't tell you how much that will mess up your cost of goods in QuickBooks. So anyhow, you can have that in there, and then over in the sales and customers section, you can actually you can choose not to sell to overdue customers. I would say I think that's a great feature, except a lot of my clients will have exceptions. We're not going to sell to overdue customers, but there's this one or two over here, and you can't pick and choose. Unfortunately, it's a blanket permission, but it is nice. It prevents others from doing something you didn't want them to do. And in the items list, let me see if we've got it in here. You can do in Enterprise, you can actually let me do a new item. You can do multiple subtotals. So you can do the amount was the default, price, and cost. I'll click on do this one. And for this one, I just oops, what I was typing here. So when you are doing, whether it's an estimate or whether it's, I guess I should rename that into a subtotal. So whether you're doing an estimate or an invoice or a sales order, that you can come in here, and I could actually do, when I do subtotals now, I could do amount, I could do quantity, I could do a couple of the other options that I did not create. But that becomes helpful because then you can have, I've done that when I've been, if you want to total up, if you need to track man hours for a project, that would let you have a total. And then if you needed to, track the quantity of pieces for, particular order for a customer, it allows you to do that. Let's see. And moving along to my chart here. One of the features that has actually been, I was surprised, I think, when I started talking with more of my clients. And let me put this back in here and do. So one of the things that I've noticed with my clients, if you're running payroll, that when you are in Enterprise, Enterprise Gold will include the unlimited enhanced payroll. That's not assisted payroll. That's not the full service payroll. That's not the online payroll. It's the enhanced payroll, which says that you do the paychecks, but you also do the tax filings on there. And the Enterprise Gold includes that as a part of your subscription with Enterprise. So I have been surprised when by the time, if you aren't using Enterprise, you're paying for a payroll subscription. You are paying, depending on how old your plan is, you're either paying $1.75 per direct deposit check. So if you're doing a weekly payroll and how many employees do you have that do direct deposit, or if you're on one of the newer plans, it's $2 per employee, whether or not they have direct deposit, and that one's per month. But when we added up their payroll fees, we actually found out that they saved money by moving into Enterprise. And then when they moved into Enterprise, then they got the US-based tech support. It was unlimited. And then they also got better deals on the credit card processing. So they got the online training. So it actually became a good deal for them. So when you're looking at the two products, that's usually a question now I ask people is, how many employees do you have? How often do you pay? What are you doing right now for your payroll? If you're doing assisted payroll, then Silver is Silver or platinum, depending on whether you're an inventory-driven company or not, would be the choices. Let me see. A couple other things as I'm going down to the list here. You can automatically create purchase orders based on your reorder. I don't have a report to pull, I don't think. Let me see. Let me do an inventory stock status. And then if I wanted to create auto purchase order, so it's going to work on what you have for your minimum on hand that you wanted and your reorder point, and based on that, then it's going to tell you what you need to have. So it has a reorder point of 100. They didn't do the math very well, did they? And whether or not you have any on purchase order, but they'll be telling you what that you think they should order. But it can save a lot of time for some folks. Certainly, at least get you started without you having to manually key everything in. And let me see, so go down my list. The minimum reorder. So let me go back here into the inventory center. So a couple things. You do have the inventory center in the in Premier, but here you've got you can set your minimum that you want to have on hand. You can and a maximum reorder point on here. So there's if I go to edit, there's the minimum, there's the maximum that you could put in here. Let's see, we all talked about disallowing. There is an auto sales price markup that you can do, or you can run the shortage report on assemblies, and you can auto build, so a nested assembly. So like say if you're going to build a product and that product contains, or that kit contains smaller groups of like smaller assemblies, that before, you'd find out that you didn't have enough of the smaller assemblies. So then you'd have to go back and build each individual one, but now this will let you auto build all those at one time, instead of you having to figure out which ones were the issue and go back and do it yourself. Mentioned when we were in the preferences and looking at advanced inventory, you could do first in, first out. So that certainly would affect whether you're going to use average cost or not. And that first in, first out would be ability would be for the platinum level of enterprise. And probably actually the rest of these features I'm going to go through right now are pretty much on the platinum level. So the idea that you can do where's my inventory? You can do valuation. If I had the advanced inventory turned on, I'd be able to do it by site. And you can do in here, I forgot to mention, when I'm in here, I can actually get into quantity discounts, why they didn't have this before, why it's advanced, I can't tell you. I think that's, so many times. So if you buy 10, here's the price. You buy 50, then we give a different price. Becomes a really nice feature, I think. And you can, again, let me go back into the preferences. So in the inventory preferences, when you're in advanced inventory, that you can track, if we turn on multiple inventory sites, you can also track by location. It could be a truck, it could be a warehouse, it could be your home, you can have different places, but you can also get into, down here, you can get into bin location. Or location, so you want to specify the aisle, the shelf that it's on. You can, we've talked about with a couple of my clients, maybe some more creative ways that we could use the sites. But then, let me see if let me close my QuickBooks Premier file and see, is this one undo? Let me close this completely. And then we'll go back into, and then let me open up second file. And do the advanced inventory. So the advanced inventory, just so you can kind of see how it plays out, is they've got sites in here. So now I've got inventory site list. And as I make this bigger, So you can have the, let me go up to the top, so you can have the warehouse, and then this could be the bin, the aisle and the bin if you wanted, or the shelf and the bin, so you can kind of see how they've abbreviated. But then you can run reports. So if I do the inventory, the valuation by site, so now you can see what's on hand. You can see they're using average cost right now, but you can see this is the Atlanta warehouse. And then I can go down, and here's the distribution center. So you can go through that way, and you'd be able to see it on your balance sheet as well. And let me see. Just a couple other things. I already mentioned the lot and serial number tracking, and we talked about the sales order worksheet fulfillment. Fulfillment worksheet. I always get those mixed. And along with that is the ability to actually use a mobile device. So I mentioned before that when you are going to pick, that you could use your an app on your cell phone, or you can use one of the scanners. The one right now, I don't have the name in front of me. Give me just a second and let me find it. It's, what is it? I've got it on another PowerPoint. The one that they want. It's an MC40. It's a Zebra mobile scanner. They are a little on the pricey side, but with those you can actually do the scanning and send it. With your cell phone, you're not going to be able to do the barcode part of it, but you can certainly do the picking on it and say what you're actually picking. So it's nice that you can have mobile, because when you look at where your inventory sits and whether or not you've got a computer, and even if you had the computer in the warehouse, I mean, you're not going to be wired into that computer, right? So, and the computer isn't going to be able to travel around with you, so it does make it tough. So this has been a nice feature. It's new. It's got to wait, probably it'll take a while for it to evolve. I'm sure they'll add additional other devices that can be used for the scanning, but right now they're starting with where they are, and we'll go from there. Let me see if there's anything else I wanted to mention. I think let me go back into, I think that's pretty much it, but let me go into PowerPoint here. And then, whoops, I'm going to go into this. And then go down to the next slide. So this is the silver, gold, and platinum. So I want you to see what's included. So they all include the online training, the US-based tech support. I forgot to mention the online data protect. That's all included. You actually get the better rates on the credit card processing. The advanced reporting was a new feature that came out a few years ago. I completely forgot. I'll have to go back in and show you that in a minute for reporting. And then the payroll is the gold will actually let you do the unlimited employees. You can have as many as you want, but that includes the payroll subscription, it includes the direct deposit, but it's assuming that you're going to do the tax filing. And the platinum would of course have that. And then when you get into the platinum level, you pick up the features in the advanced inventory as well as the advanced pricing modules. And the other thing that I'll show you real quickly is that in the reporting, there is advanced reporting. I will tell you my personal take on the advanced reporting is it's not user-friendly, and there's a real learning curve. So usually what I recommend is if you're looking at it, unless you're really savvy with reporting, and a couple of my savvy friends have still had some issues, then you may want to give some thought to working with someone. And I've got people that I know work with the advanced reporting tool, so I'm happy to refer out. But if you have any other questions, I hope that gives you an idea of what additional features you would pick up when you go into QuickBooks QuickBooks Enterprise that you didn't have from into Premier. Go back in here, whoops. And I'll go back up to, So you can see the difference between what you get in Premier versus what you would get into Enterprise. And again, Enterprise does come in the different levels. I can get you a trial version of Enterprise so you can download and you can test it. Be happy to do demo with it so we can take a closer look at your own business and see how it would play out. And then if you've got any questions, then with Enterprise and QuickBooks Premier, I am a reseller as well as a pro advisor. So happy to work with you. So hope that answers a lot of your questions, and let me know if you have more. Thanks for now. Bye-bye.